I'm going to start. Okay, great. So we're ready to go. I'm delighted to welcome Shane Young to our meeting tonight to talk about PowerApps. I apologize again for the mix up over the time zones, but we're here. And I appreciate everybody who's staying up so late to join us. Before I turn the meeting over to Shane, I want to give you a little bit of background about where I'm coming from and why I wanted to do this. Over the years, Microsoft tried to webify Access at least 3 times. We had data access pages back in the early 2000s. In 2010, we had Access web databases. And in 2013, we had Access web apps, and all 3 attempts failed. So in 2016, when they finally deprecated Access web apps, about that same time, they launched PowerApps. And I think myself, like a lot of other Access developers by that point, were a little bit gun shy and didn't embrace PowerApps the way we might have done otherwise. So a year ago, I attended the Access DevCon in Vienna virtually. It's a virtual conference. I didn't get to go to Germany or to Austria, but I attended a PowerApps workshop as part of that DevCon. And I was pleasantly surprised both by what's possible and just the maturity that PowerApps has reached. So I decided that would be something we should pursue. And so when I felt it was time for us to really revisit or get reoriented or get reintroduced to PowerApps, I wanted to bring in someone who's a real professional PowerApps developer and trainer, rather than do another contrived presentation by somebody who's done enough to know the basics, but not really how to do it. And so that's when I reached out to Shane. Shane has a series of tutorials on YouTube, which are among the best I've ever seen. They're excellent, informative, and entertaining. And so with that, I will turn the time over to Shane. I will make him the presenter again. And he can take the meeting away. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that kind introduction. Let's see if I can smart enough to share my screen. All right, there I am. There's my big ugly face. So just a real quick on who I am and why I am here. So my name is Shane Young. I have been a Microsoft MVP. The slide's actually old, for 16 years. It'll be 17 soon, hopefully, knock on wood. But so I started in the SharePoint space. So I was a diehard SharePoint person. I had a SharePoint consulting company. I've written 6 SharePoint books. I did the whole SharePoint world. I remember those SharePoint based web access databases once upon a time as well, right? That was SharePoint facilitated that. And after about 2015, 16, somewhere like that, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna switch gears. I did PowerShell for a while, and then I kind of stumbled around. PowerShell was fun, but nobody wanted to pay for PowerShell help. So, and I ran into someone, said, hey, I'm doing this PowerApps thing. And I'm like, cool, I'm all in. And so I jumped into the wonderful world of PowerApps at the very beginning of PowerApps' life. I'm dumb luck. I've made a lot of YouTube videos about it. I think I'm up to just shy of 14 million views on YouTube. So I spend a lot of time on YouTube. And then now I have a company called PowerApps 911. We do PowerApps, we do Power Automate, we do Power BI. Basically, the whole Power Platform is what we do. Whether we're doing full-on consulting, we do mentoring, we do training, we do a little bit of all of that stuff. So anyway, that's who I am. There's all my contact info. Not that anyone really wants it, but there it is. And down in the bottom right, that is Chewy. When you're looking to make as much content as I have, like sometimes you just need a muse, right? You need something to go against. And my natural inclination was to, use my kids all the time, but YouTube frowns upon exploiting your children. So I decided to exploit my dog. So Chewy is in most of the videos. A lot of the people that watch prefer Chewy over me. So anyway, that's Chewy right there in its natural habitat. Right, even a little Chewy toys. Hello, Chewy. Anyway, all right. So that's it. That's the extent of introduction. And this is actually a Power App I was using to do that. Oh, I know. I'm so fancy. So, talking to George ahead of time, I realized I could come in and just do like a straight up, like, hey, here's how you build your first Power App. But it sounded like that wasn't really what you guys were after. So my intention instead was to maybe show you guys some of the cool things about Power Apps and maybe some of the reasons that maybe you should branch out a little bit from from Access and move into the Power App space, right? And one of the biggest reasons for that, quite frankly, is just the fact that we get, Access is Access, right? We've been using Access for a gazillion years. I remember my first Access database back in the late 90s, a long time ago. And it still does what it's always done, right? If you want to build relational databases, you want to have some forms, great. I'm certain with all the smart people on this call, you guys have done way crazier things with Access. But for most people, right, it was a few tables hooked up, a form to enter some data, maybe a way to search it, and you moved on. So one of the things with Power Apps I think you guys are going to find the most interesting is that we can go another tier, right? So with Power Apps, we can start to take advantage of mobile phones, for example. And not only can we just put it on a mobile phone, right? You're thinking, well, I can get my Access to run on a mobile phone, but you can start to use the hardware, right? So we're going to look at a demo where we use the camera, where we use the barcode scanner, where we're using the GPS coordinates, right? So we're taking it and we're going another step out, and we're not writing code, right? I'm not a developer. I've never written a line of C# code in my life. I am just a guy who likes to glue pieces of the puzzle together to build solutions, and the Power Platform has really allowed me to do that. So that was kind of my thought. I mean, along the way, definitely feel free to yell at me, ask questions, right? I don't really have like this amazing agenda or this wonderfully scripted demo. I'm more of a, let's just kind of make this what you guys want it to be. I'm sure you've got specific questions about, why should you care, or what does it do, or how would that work, or how do I do this thing that I've done in Access forever in Power Apps? I'm happy to answer those types of questions along the way. Also, and the other thing to keep in mind is that after we get done with all this, if you start to say, hey, I do want to kind of do a little bit more. One of the things that Microsoft is currently in a testing phase right now is the ability. So how you create in your Access databases that you can do linked tables to like a SharePoint list. There's now a mechanism that you can go in there and you can take one of your Access tables and you can export it to Dataverse, Dataverse being the database that underlies the whole Power Platform. And so then now your Access database is running, but the backend is a Dataverse table. And so then the beauty of that is then you could still have your core Access database and all the fun that it is, but now it's storing the data in Dataverse. So then you could reference that data from a Power Apps mobile app, right? Or, other types of Power BI or automation with Power Automate, right? You have that full scale available to you. So Microsoft's trying to help, our Access friends get there. So does anybody, somebody threw something in chat. I love that. Let's see. As you guys call those hybrid applications. Good to know. Yeah, and feel free to throw things in chat. I spend my whole life teaching, so I'm very used to things being thrown at me from multiple directions. All right, so I thought maybe just to get us started, like let's just look at one of these fun little apps and see something that a Power App could do that we would never be able to do in Access. So here I've got a little program called AirServer. AirServer lets me share my phone with my computer here, hopefully. Hello, phone. And invariably, this means I'll get something embarrassing on my phone. So, make fun of me when it happens. So probably the most common scenario that you're going to see, like when we start getting into, because a lot of times, like I know we're talking about access here, but the other one that I have to often talk about is info path, right? Info path is kind of that same thing from the standpoint of creating forms and such. But, how do I extend that? How do I do it a little bit more? And so here on my phone, I'm going to run first just a camera demo app. And voila, I wish she was usually in here. Here, we were talking about my toys, right? So there's my stuff. So you can see that this app, I'm taking a nice little picture here. We'll give it a name. Yep, that's a very nice name. Take a picture. And then lo and behold, right, I'm saving that data. And so right now it's using a Power Automate flow to push that data into a SharePoint document library to save it. Kind of handy, right? So you can embed a camera. I can even flip it around and be like, hey, look, there I am. No one wants to see me though. As well, if you've already got pictures and you just want to attach pictures or images, we have those same types of controls. And what's really nice about these is that we have the ability to either use an existing photo or take one. And whereas a minute ago you saw us kind of taking it on that little tiny screen, if I use this interface for taking it, right now it's actually my iPhone's camera, right? So I can zoom in on the Easter toys I haven't put away yet. And so we can take a nice picture there, and upload that, upload. And so it's off and running. So this is one of the things that people have really enjoyed about Power Apps, right? As soon as they start realizing that they can take pictures and then, incorporate those into the apps, right? So this is an app obviously just for taking a picture, but imagine now the same way you guys are doing data collection of whatever, right? Whether it's, inspections or inventories or whatever, right? Now you can actually incorporate pictures into that methodology. So now you're grabbing that and incorporating that. And that's been a big win for a lot of people. Another one of the functionalities that is very interesting. So if I do this read NFC, so in my iPhone, it has a built-in NFC reader. I don't even know why, but it does. And so Power Apps can leverage the hardware, right? So I can say scan and go. And so on my little Pac-Man guy here, right, I've got an NFC tag. And so I can build an app that allows me to scan Pac-Man. And then it takes me into, it went and found, it did a lookup, right? So it went to our data source, pulled back the information about it. And so here you can see that I'm then able to, I don't have any Pac-Man to check out, but if I had a Pac-Man to check out, I would choose one and then I would sign, and now I'm borrowing stuff, right? So now I'm adding pin inputs, I'm adding barcodes, or not barcode, that's an NFC tag scanner. And then I'm, querying my inventory. So inventory management becomes a lot easier when you're now using either NFC tags or barcode type of scanning. So kind of a fun little way to do that.
Can I ask a question?
You can ask as many questions as you want.
Will it handle the ISBN codes on books?
I've never tried one. Let's try. So this app is for the NFC scanning, but as you can probably guess, I have a barcode app over here somewhere. This one. And I just happen to have one of my 8 million books back here. All right, so we're going to do a single scan. This app was not made to be as pretty. And so it'll definitely scan. So that was the UPC code. That wasn't what you wanted. So you want the ISBN that's right beside it. Is that the?
Yeah, that would be the one that I would want.
All right, so let's try scan. Surprising it's in a format that it doesn't read. Let's try a different book. Though it's the same publisher, so probably not going to work with this one. No, I guess it does not.
That's unfortunate.
Now, before I would tell you for certain that it doesn't work, what I would want to do is there's some tweaking, there's some settings I can set barcode types, right? Because like here's another barcode. So it does that one. It does QR codes. It does a lot of different barcodes. But the key here is that the barcode scanning software is not built into PowerApps. The barcode scanning is built into the iOS or Android platforms. So it's really what they support. But I would have not guessed that that was not going to not work. So now I'm curious. Let's go look real quick since you've asked. I'm now curious. New screen here. So if I insert a barcode scanner. So one of the properties here is barcode type. Barcode type dot. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know what the format of that tag is, but these are the ones that PowerApps seems to know about. So I'm not sure.
I wonder.
And so I saw someone, so Jack put in, but don't we lose the full power of SQL Server by going to Dataverse, i.e. stored procedures? Oh, so Jack, you've looked around a little bit. Yeah, so Dataverse is, it is SQL based, but you're absolutely right. It does not support stored procedures today. It also doesn't support some of the more complex views. So in SQL, you know, when you start getting into those crazy inner outer joined views, you know, you'll find that Dataverse also doesn't support that. So, you know, those are two valid pieces of feedback of things that are not supported in Dataverse. Any other questions? I mean, at any point, you guys feel free to interrupt me, right? I mean, like I said, I'm just here to kind of give you guys ideas and hopefully get you inspired a little bit to think, oh, maybe I should go kick the tires in this thing. So
Yeah.
I have a question.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
When you connect a data table through the Dataverse, is it a live connection or do you need to refresh it periodically?
what are you talking about? Like if you did the access and you exported to Dataverse?
Yes.
I have not. So it's in preview. I haven't actually used it, but my understanding is that it's the same as the others, that it's a live connection.
Yeah. I want to say yes. I haven't used it yet either. You have to have the current version of Microsoft 365 to be able to get the preview. And I don't have that, but I've seen two presentations recently. Maria Barnes did one, and I believe it is a live connection based on that presentation. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm mostly positive as well. And so here, I'm going to throw this in chat real quick. This is the link. And at the bottom of this page, if you wanted to go sign up, you can sign up already. So you could sign up and start kicking the tires on it. But I have not, I've not done it myself yet.
URL on the chat.
Yep, it's in the chat.
Okay, and I will capture the chat and put it
on the chat.
Yeah. And I will capture that with the recording at the end. So I'll make sure you get it.
Okay.
Jared, I think you tried to jump in there too.
Yes, I'll turn my camera on real quick. Yeah, sorry, I might be not a familiar face, but my name is Jared, and I work with Armin Stein. He with J Street Technology. He was the one that invited me to this.
Well, tell him thank you.
Yeah, I sure will. My question isn't totally. It's more, I'm not a developer. I'm our business development specialist. So I just mostly work with incoming leads and, onboard new projects and everything. But we've been getting a lot of feedback from clients about PowerApps. And unfortunately, we don't have any developers in this area. And so I was just curious, like if you had any recommendation on reading materials or just like resources for someone like me who's not a developer to kind of really just learn it or learn about all the possibilities, just any, beginner resources like that.
Yep. So the good news is, Jared, I'm not a developer either.
Oh,
I've
okay.
never written a line of C# code in my life. And I am the world's #1 talking head on Power Platform. So you don't have to be a developer. And honestly, I would say, like, when I speak at large conferences, about 50% of the audience is not IT people. So it is business people like yourself who just said, I got a problem I want to solve. And even so much so that, we're a company of about 20 people now. I don't know the exact number. I'd say half of my consultants, so people that are consulting on Power Apps professionally, are not IT people. They came from business backgrounds. So do not let that make you feel like you can't do it in any way.
Okay.
So what I was going to tell you was I'm a little, what do you call it? Self-indulging here, right? But if you go to training.powerapps911.com, I have a free class out here, Power Apps, Power Automate on Demand. And so, I'm a little biased, but I would say that this is the best way for you to get started. It's, so it's got a little bit of a video on Power Apps. So what is it? Some demos and how to build your first app, more importantly.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's got a little bit of a demo on Power Automate and then how to build your first one of those. And then also Power BI, right? The reporting side, which is really, as business people, what we probably care about the most.
Mm-hmm.
I think you could watch this little free thing. I mean, you have to put in your email address. Woo! If you don't like the emails we send, unsubscribe. It doesn't matter. No one's calling you. No one's bothering you. But I think that would be a great way for you just to wrap your head around what is possible. And then from there, 99 people out of 100 go to YouTube and watch some YouTube videos. And that's kind of how they get started. I mean, there's formal training and all that, but watch that. And I think you'll be like, all right, I can do this.
Yeah, sure thing. Your YouTube videos were recommended to me by Armin, and so I'll definitely check them out. But yeah, I just don't know a whole lot about it, and I definitely I'm thinking about the future and what I want to do in this space, and from all the feedback I've gotten, it seems like this is where Microsoft is putting all their bucks. So
Microsoft is definitely putting all their bucks, right? And that's why I wanted to join this group of a bunch of, primarily Access people and just help expose kind of some of the reasons that maybe, it can augment Access solutions. How about that, instead of replacing them?
Yes, that's kind of how I see it too. Let me throw in 2 comments. One is that I learned so much from watching the YouTube videos that I think that's an excellent place. Not only Shane, but there are several others that I follow.
Yeah.
Reza Durrani, Daniel Christian are 2 of the others that come to mind,
yeah, thank you.
And I think part of the hesitation a lot of us had was, like I said, coming from that sort of disappointing experience in the 2010, 2013, 2016 cycle. And we didn't really give it a fair shot. And I think that's time to but there is one. I have talked to Armin about this, and I'm going to pontificate just slightly if you'll indulge me. I have talked to Armin about this issue, and he raised the concern of a software development life cycle, which is a factor that we have to, especially J Street and anybody else who's in a development shop, has to consider. And I'm not sure how Power Apps fits in that, but I think it's something that shops need to be thinking about. You want to expand on that, or?
I mean, I can. Yeah. So, anyone from an IT background, which is not Jared and I, we, the pro devs of the world, they really love SDLC or ALM, right? Application Lifecycle Management. And so that's just that concept that you build something in dev, and then when it's done in dev, you go put it into QA, you do some testing there. Oh, it's great. And then you promote it production. And so you're kind of always moving, up and down you're always moving up this ladder. And so the idea is that when it gets to production, it's always wonderful and perfect because you've tested it and you've controlled it and all that, blah, blah, blah. A, I don't buy it. But B, one of the things that we've really seen with Power Platform, for better or for worse, is that I would tell you that in my heart of hearts, 98% of all Power Apps are just done in production. It's probably higher than that. It's probably 99.9. Almost every Power App's done in production. And one of the main reasons for that is it's just it's an agile platform, right? It's meant to just be like, hey, I'm gonna go in here, I'm gonna make some changes, I'm gonna do a thing, and boom, we're up and running, right? And if I don't like what I did, I can go over here, I'm gonna make some tweaks, and then we're gonna roll it out, right? It is a very iterative, quick changing, twitchy type of thing. And you know, and it's easy for people to discount that and say, oh, well, that's only for like little small things. You know, as a company, we've built over 1,000 Power Apps for customers. And I think 3 of them maybe follow some type of lifecycle management, right? Even when people are buying these giant apps from us, they still don't want to get bogged down in that machine. And the reason, right, is this is kind of back to, you alluded to earlier, like where you guys, you know, the past has made you not want to get into Power Apps. It's the same, right? The past world of dealing with IT and saying, hey, I need this thing built. And they're like, okay, we can build that in 18 months. No one wants that anymore, right? No one wants the 18-month development cycle. No one wants to go through all that. They want to sit down in front of their computer with, you know, maybe a glass of wine at night and pound out an app real quick and do their thing, right? So that's why we're seeing that so many of the people that are building Power Platform solutions are not pro devs. They're not IT. They are business users who are just saying, hey, I can do this myself. Now, that doesn't mean, right? I realize that most of, if not everyone on here is a professional developer, professional consultant, right? It's not to say that we don't have a place as professional consultants and developers, but we have to embrace that at the end of the day, the Power Platform doesn't want to be this monolithic, slow-moving thing. People want to just open it up, click some buttons, make an app, and roll it out.
Yeah.
You know, I know that makes people cringe, and it's the reality, right? Whether or not we think it's correct, it is the reality of what's going on in the Power Platform. My computer wants to restart. It's like, why are you awake right now?
Thanks for addressing that. Yeah, I kind of wondered how that would come across, but yeah, thanks.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, right? Like it is possible. PowerApps does have a model for going through different, what we call environments. So you could build it in dev and then push it to testing and then do production, right? PowerApps supports that. The infrastructure is there. It's just not being used. It's just not the norm. So if I was brand new to the platform, like most of you are, I wouldn't start there, right? Because that just makes PowerApps feel like this big, heavy boat. If you're new to the platform, you jump in there, you build yourself a quick app to do something you already know how to do, right? Like I'm guessing you think of your smallest Access database today, you say, how would I rebuild this exact same thing in PowerApps? And you start, getting in there, you're like, all right, to show all the records, I need a gallery. To edit the data, I need these forms. To display some data, I'm gonna do this. And that's the best way to learn, is rebuilding something you've already got built. You've already solved all the logic. You already know how it all connects. Tackling that as your first project to wrap your head around the Power Platform is always going to be best. And then the idea is that as you do it, then you start to say, well, man, we did it this way because this is all Access could do, right? But now, wouldn't it be great if I had a separate mobile app for collecting the inventory information, or if I had a separate mobile app to do this piece or another? And that's where then the light bulbs start to come on of, hey, this is kind of a cool platform. Like one of the projects we're doing right now, it's for a very, very large organization, quite frankly, and they're doing all their IT asset management at this one unit's level in an Access database today, right? And so what are we doing? We're currently rolling out a Power App. And so it's like, just remake it. And I'm like, no, we're not just going to remake your Access to the Power App. Instead, we are saying, hey, what if we incorporate barcode scanning? What if we incorporate picture taking, right? And we're now, instead of just one monolithic Access database, he's going to have one Power App for managing stuff at his desk, and then another Power App that runs on his phone for just doing the at an end user's desk type of activities, right? And so we're kind of doing that. And then we're incorporating an external API to pull in data from another service for some of the things. So, you know,
You just said two things that are really important, I think, that I want to reiterate. You said one, the API, which I'd come back, circle that. But the other one you said is he has an app on his desktop for PowerApps. And I think that's something that maybe has slipped under the radar for a lot of us, that PowerApps isn't exclusively a mobile app.
correct. Yeah. So probably 2/3 of the Power Apps that we build in the world, right, is like this, right? So this is my desktop inventory management. I'm like, hey, I want to borrow a ghost toy, right? And so here I am running it on my PC browser, right? Same type of thing that I had on the one you already saw. But yeah, this is definitely a desktop app, right? And so I can check out 2 of those and borrow, and now I've borrowed 2 ghosts. Yay. And then over here, here's all the stuff I've currently got borrowed. Yeah, but that's a great point. Sorry if I did not mention that, you know.
No, it's not you. It's pretty much the norm is that we don't.
Gotcha. But yeah, so 2/3, 80% of the apps we build, they're actually ran on desktop PCs in a browser, quite frankly. You know, this one right here, right? This is my expense report app. So, you know, this is a lot like an Access database, right? We got a header information over here. So this is the parent data. We've got child data we can put over here. We can even attach, you know, files to it. And so, you know, it does nice little, so I want some tacos for $12. We'll save that. I want a glass of wine because it's that time of night I should be drinking wine, right? So that is $9.99. Wine is cheap or expensive, I don't know. And it's win, but anyway, so this is letting me do this, right? I can go over here. I can attach a file of Chewy by the pool. We'll just call this user group. Type of expense, it's training. You can see we're auto calculating. This one actually will skip the step, but it has an approvals process. So based on the amount, the total of these items, which is currently $21.99, it'll assign different approvers. So if I wanted to see, I could see that, you know, Daniel can approve it to 100, Chewy to 1,000, Nicole to 10,000, and I can approve anything over 10,000. So if we add something in here to make this more expensive, better wine. So it's $125. So when we save this one, right, the total updated, the approver updated, boom. When I save this, all that data is going to get saved in all the different relational places like you'd expect. It's also just sent an email off to Chewy because he's the approver with a link back into that specific record so he can approve it. And then, of course, we can also go over here and say view and edit. And then in here, we now can say, all right, there's the user group one we just did. There's all the data. And then, of course, I can still edit these if I wanted. So yeah, so definitely running these as on a PC on a desktop like this is pretty cool. Another really interesting thing that no one's probably ever told you it can do is PowerApps does, you can build offline apps. So an app that would actually work without the internet, right? Because we think of PowerApps being in the cloud, which means they have to be connected to the cloud. But so we've got customers, let's see. So there's one, it's a company, they blow things up, right? So when they go out into the field, they're putting explosive here and there. And so they have an iPad with them that has the app running offline. And so when they go out in the field, they're capturing, you know, I put this much in this hole, right? I did this, all of the regulatory information they need to collect about the explosion they're about to make. And then when they get back to the office, they go online, it syncs all the data in. And then once, you know, it gets all sunk in, not only do we do that, we then automatically generate a 13-page PDF report, which is a mimic of the government piece of paper that they used to fill out by hand. we automatically generate that PDF and send it off to the government auditor with not only is it the information we collected from the field, but it also is visual images that we've got of the different hole designs that they did with the explosives and stuff. So, two very cool in several facets, right? One, being offline. Two, being able to automatically generate this very detailed PDF that mimics a government form and automatically just send that back off. So they're not going back to the office and then filling in by hand this piece of paper of all the things that they just did. So offline apps is another really interesting facet of this. Now I realize for the Access folks, it's not super interesting, right? Because you could have just put the Access database on a laptop and it would have just ran, fine on the laptop, whether the internet was there or not. But that's a whole nother issue.
So what is the data stored in?
So in that case, we have just a local storage that we're storing the data in. Basically, we're temporarily storing the data in flat files on the device. And then when we get back to the office, we're syncing it into a Azure SQL database.
Is that something that happens automatically as soon as it sees the connection to the server, or do you have to initiate the upload?
You have to initiate. So we get back and you open up the app and then you say push to SQL. We could add some automation to it, but I personally don't like, I call that magic, right? When I just show up and it just magically goes and I just expect it to magically get there. I don't like magic. So I purposely dissuade my customers from doing magic. And I always say, hey, when you left, when you got back, press the darn button and push it up there and control your own destiny, right?
Mm-hmm. Less security issues as well.
Yeah. And so like that's a great one. There's also a group in South Africa. They do meter readings, right? We do meter readings here in the US, but when they do meter readings, like in big industrial malls and stuff, they don't have great internet. So same thing. When you get to the site, you choose your site, you take all the data offline with you. So you say, hey, I'm going to, I'm at this site, so I need all the meters and all the previous readings and all that. You then go into the dungeon, you collect all the data, and then you come back to the light of day, and then you push it all back in, and so that's another great one that, right, it really changed how this guy has grown his business by being able to read meters, more efficiently, more accurately. We actually incorporated in that one taking pictures because he doesn't trust the part-time people that he has reading meters. So not only do they type in what they see, but they take a picture of the meter. So if there's a discrepancy later, somebody can look at the picture of the meter and be like, oh, you transposed your numbers, and that's why the meter reading was so high or so low. So once again, just an interesting way, like they said, hey, now that I'm using PowerApps and I have more access to more things, can I do a better job of collecting this information? And it turned out for them, taking pictures, let them, get a little bit more data validation.
So Shane, then that app you just described, is that kind of a complex app or is that a beginner's app?
That is a complex app.
Okay.
Anytime you hear offline, it's a little bit more, it's some work, right? It's not impossible. You could learn to build it in, short order, but I wouldn't tell you to make it your first app.
Right.
Yes, yeah. That one, the offline ones, they're a little bit tricky.
But that actually is a selling point in my mind, which is that PowerApps has a range of capabilities from very simple to very complex.
Yes.
And I think that's another aspect of it that we need to be aware of, that you're not limited to taking pictures on your phone for a toy collection.
Right. And I would definitely say, so we have done, I've seen PowerApps from an app that took 5 minutes to build to the biggest one I know of was a $1 million project to build an app, right? Like PowerApps runs the gamut of size and complexity. We've done really simple data models. We've done parent, child, grandchild data models. we've got even a handful of apps that we've done like fully normalized models where like nothing is in any table, right? It takes 17 tables to put all the data back together, but that gave us the ability to, make it completely robust. So every time that it was the one I'm thinking of right now is an inspection app, right? So it's a construction and maintenance company over in the UK and the Netherlands. And so every time they get a new project, they have to do a new type of safety inspection that's specific to that project. They didn't want to have to rewrite the app every time, right? Think about it. If you were doing Access, every time that you got a new inspection with new questions, you'd basically spin up a new form, right? Probably a new table, new form, and that's how you would do it. For these guys, we built the app so that you can go in there and just go into the app and say, hey, I've got a new inspection, create a new inspection. Here are the questions for that inspection. You put them in, and we have such a normalized data model that we can then reassemble that on the fly. And just, if you choose, I'm doing this inspection, we show you these questions. We show you these, we do these, but it's all completely maintained by an end user. It is not changing the app every time. So PowerApps can do very, very complex data models as well. It's hard, but if you, I'm guessing you guys are really good at data already. I bet you'd understand those complex data models pretty quick.
Yeah.
So it's just really about learning the tools.
Yeah.
All right. So you saw my expense report one. This is just always a fan favorite. We did that one already. I showed you a little bit of this one. So here's another one. So this is back to a mobile phone. So this is another one. So this woman, it was Rena. Rena actually was an Access person in a former life, and she retired from technology, and then she ended up becoming a new home construction inspector. So where she lives in Alabama, they were building, she got hooked up with this guy who's building 200 houses a year. And so what she does is she goes into the house either when it's done or almost done. And on the builder's behalf, she's inspecting the house to find out, are all of his subcontractors doing their jobs? Anyway, she ended up having us, for her little one-woman shop, build her a Power App to do this process, right? So that's why it's this tall and skinny format again. It's a mobile phone app. But so she goes in there, and obviously we rebranded it as us, but she's like, all right, I'm in the Afton Falls community. I'm on lot 12. I'm at address blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. I'm on the, the big elevation. Here's the manager. So Chewy is the manager. So then she'd go down here. She's like, all right, now she would then take pictures of the house, right? So get the 4 elevations of the house, right? Once again, proving she's at the right house. And so then once she kind of has this is her header information. So then she jumps in here. She's like, all right, now I need to start inspecting. So she walks in the house and she says, oh, there's a deficiency. It is a door issue and it is squeaks. It has a point deduction, point value is 0.4. She could add a picture of the squeaky door if she needed, but she saves. So then there's the squeaky door. Then she's like, oh, now I'm over here. And it turns out the furniture is wrinkled. That's 0.2. Takes a picture of the furniture, right? Chewy's sitting on furniture. And then she saves that. And so anyway, so Rena goes through the whole house. And then when she's done, right, you can see up here, it's automatically calculating a score. So it's deducting points for all of the issues. And so then when she's done, she says, generate report. And so then this pushes the data. So it saves it back to SQL, or no, I think she's in SharePoint as a data source. She wasn't, I don't know. No, she was in SharePoint. Now she's in SQL. That's what it is. But anyway, so she does this, and then bingo, bango, it generates a PDF report and it sends it to the builder. And in that PDF report, it has all of her report details. It has all the pictures. But so her builder is just tickled pink, right? Because now when she walks the house, as soon as she gets outside and hits go, he's getting a report so he can start yelling at subcontractors for doing a bad job. And not only that, we're putting it in SQL so that in the long term, we're also then doing Power BI reporting so he can see the trends over time, slice and dice his data all the way he wants. We also have built in there, it turns out that a lot of times she needs to be able to go in and re-inspect. So here's all the inspections that we've done recently, but I could either go in here and rework one, or, oh, that one's now cached, get rid of search inspections, or she can copy one. So sometimes if a house is so bad, she has to redo it, but she does the copy. So then that way all the header information is pre-populated and she just goes back and starts inspecting again. So lots of cool stuff, and once again, this is, she was an Access person and she tried it in Access and just couldn't get what she needed. And so she ended up having us build it for her in a Power App and on a mobile phone. And now Rena inspects hundreds of houses a year in her retirement. So kind of a fun one. I think that was all the ones I had open. Yeah, you don't care about that stuff. I don't know. What other questions you guys got? Other things you wonder could it do, or how you would do something that you do today?
Well, I have some questions, but I'd rather have the rest of the chapter go first, if possible, if they have them.
Hi, I'm sorry I came in late, so I'll have to catch the first part of the recording. But so you're pretty much presenting PowerApps as a replacement for Access. There's not really a connection between, I missed it if you did talk about there being any way to connect Access to PowerApps.
So what Microsoft has given us recently, so what you can do, so you have this new feature, and I'll put it in chat again for you. But this feature, what it does is it will allow you to take your Access database, and you know how today you can do linked tables to like put your data into SharePoint. You could do a linked table into Dataverse. And so Dataverse is the data engine under Power Platform. So now imagine you take your Access database and you say, hey, my database is still, or my Access forms and all that's still here, all the functionalities here, but the data is in Dataverse. And so then now you could get to that data using a Power App or a Power Automate or Power BI. So you could augment what you're doing with Access today. Maybe the database that you use today is the big solution, and then you're just making a mobile phone app that just updates one little table, and that's the table you've got out in Dataverse, and then now it's all kind of connected.
So Dataverse is a new online backend option, is what you're saying.
Yeah, Dataverse is it's built on top of SQL, but it is it's the underlying data base and then some that makes Power Platform go around. So it's Power Platform's preferred data storage location.
I see. Because I mean, I've been doing stuff using SharePoint as the back end. So
Yep.
this is just a different server or different service.
Yep. And honestly, if you're using SharePoint as a backend today, right? So the same thing, you can build a Power App. So one of the great things about Power Apps and the rest of the Power Platform is that, they have about 700 different connectors. So we could build a Power App on top of SharePoint, on top of SQL, on top of Dataverse, on top of Salesforce, on top of Oracle, on top of an API, right? Like I said, there's about 700 different connectors out there. So that's another interesting facet of the Power Platform is we're not limited to just the little box that, we live in some of the other technologies.
So there's 700 now?
The last number I saw was 690, but there's a lot. I think that's a key message.
Well, I was in my head, it was like 150 or 160. That's why I'm going, wow.
Yeah, 690 was the last number I saw.
Okay. Yeah, so in my mind, this is what we think of as a hybrid app in our world, where you have two different interfaces to the same common data. And one of those interfaces is basically desktop, and the other is anywhere else you want it.
Yep.
It can run in a phone, it can run in a browser, it can run. Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there now a desktop player for PowerApps?
There always has been. It's very old and lethargic, and we typically just run it in the browser, but technically there is one. If you go into the Microsoft Store, there is a PowerApps player for your desktop.
So
I just
you
can't give you a
wouldn't,
good reason to use it.
you wouldn't recommend it then?
Nope, just run it in your browser.
Okay.
You
But yeah,
mentioned that-
go ahead, Bill.
Mhm. You mentioned that the PowerApps platform includes the ability to manipulate hardware. When you want to attach something that's not, for instance, part of your phone or, a USB camera from your computer, do you need to find connectors or drivers for it, for PowerApps to use it, or will it discover it and do what it needs to do to talk to it?
No. So the way that I think about it, right? So like if I build a Power App, over here. And so like, say, for example, I've got just a text input here, a way to, somewhere to select some text. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And so obviously I can go into here and I can type, right? That's how the text input works. I know you're shocked. But say that I wanted to use this guy, right? So an actual USB scanner on my local PC. So the key is that no, PowerApps doesn't really know that I'm using this fancy USB scanner. What it is, what I teach people is this is a keyboard, right? You just have to think about this as a keyboard. So with my cursor in there, if I find my little barcode, I can scan my barcode, right? So it's not the case that PowerApps is using fancy hardware directly. It's more about thinking about what is the output of that fancy hardware and how could I consume it? But PowerApps doesn't have drivers or any of that type of stuff.
Okay, so it just expects a type of alphanumeric output from the device that it can then display for you. Okay.
Yeah, and all the cases I've been in so far, like it's been this, right? It's been people want some type of barcode scanner, or or they've used like one of our like manufacturing customers. I think he had like some type of testing device, right? But it was outputting, alphanumeric characters, and so we were just capturing those. And as far as PowerApps knew, somebody typed that in on a keyboard.
And when you're using your phone camera, for instance, like in that inspection app, are you driving the camera shutter from the app or manually?
On my phone, it's in the app. Well, I guess it depends, right? So when we connected, let me open that back up. So like if I use this control, just by tapping the screen, it is taking the picture. When I used this one, it gave me the option to either use the photo library, so a photo I'd taken already, or if I do take photo, you can see that it's basically invoking my camera's photo, right? There you guys are. Hi. Right. And so I can change my zooms and all that. I can turn on the flash and not, but it's using the iOS's camera drivers, so to speak, to take advantage of that. Does that answer what you were after?
Yes.
Okay.
I can't imagine how it figures out how to load the video, but
got me, man.
That's the magic, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right. I just that's the beauty of this, right? I'm not a dev. I just leverage the stuff that they gave me for free, and I just take advantage of it. The same with like the GPS coordinates. That's another popular one. It knows the longitude, the latitude, my altitude, and my heading all from the phone. So I can get all of that as well and capture that in my app directly.
And those are all controls that are available without any special APIs.
Yep. Yeah. Like I literally just put a label right here on the screen. I can just show you, like if I just do location.latitude, and so there's my latitude right now, 39.3257. Yeah, that's no effort.
Yeah. So yeah, these are the things that I was hoping we could expose tonight, rather than, like I said, the kind of contrived examples we typically get. I really appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
trying to be mindful of your time. We're coming up on an hour. So,
yeah, it's getting to be Shane's bedtime. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah.
But I'm happy if you guys have got other questions. I mean, I'm good to answer. I don't want to.
Well, our all-time record is an hour and a half. So we can shoot for that, or we can let you go to bed.
Let's. I don't know. Does anybody have any other pressing questions? I'm happy to call it a night right now. But like I said, if somebody's sitting there waiting to ask a question, please ask. No. All right. Well, and while I'm waiting on that, I was going to say, Molly, I saw your comment that you got your first Power App out the door. High five. It's always exciting when you get the first one done. So good job.
So one other thing, if someone wanted to reach out to you either for training or consulting, your contact information is in the chat.
Somewhere. Did I close it? Wait, hang on. We're going to find it. I put it here, but yeah, I'll just put it in chat. But it's just, so you can email me, Shane@PowerApps911.com, or you can go to training.powerapps911.com. Or let's do this. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm always happy to help. I'm always happy to chat with you guys as you try to figure out how you do it right. And I don't want you to think anyway, I'm like, hey, get rid of Access tomorrow, right? I'm not that in any way, but just I think there's a lot of opportunity here. You guys have got great data modeling skills already. You understand business logic. Learning to build a Power App's pretty easy, and it opens you up to a whole new world of customer potential and opportunities. So that's my goal, right? It's not to be like, oh, Access is dumb, get away from it. That is not why I was here. So
I think my perspective is really to say we really have the opportunity to open our toolbox up and expand it in ways that maybe we haven't thought about.
yeah, and I promise this is not going anywhere like web access databases or any of the other, garbage ideas that Microsoft's thrown at us over the years. This is this is here for the long run. This is a legit, multi growing business for Microsoft. So they are all in and then some on this platform. So, and the other thing I would remind you guys, right? So even though I've been doing this for 5 years or whatever the heck I've been doing it for, right? We're still very early. We're still on the very bottom of the adoption curve. So you're not joining this party late. You're not joining this party in the middle. We are still in early days, even though, there's some nerds like me that have been doing it a long time. The growth is still just exponentially going up, and we're still very early. So
that brings up another question that I had in the back of my mind, and now you've given me an opening to throw in here. Is stability a factor? In other words, is it this constant churn of new features that creates uncertainty?
No, there is a constant churn of newness, or not constant. There's a lot of newness, but no, the platform as itself is very stable. And the good news is, like, when you publish a version of the app, it stays on that version of the software. It doesn't automatically rev. You have to republish it to rev it to the latest versions. But I know, I would tell you that, no plane takes off at Heathrow Airport without multiple Power Apps running, right? Like Heathrow Airport, the world's largest or most busy or second busiest, whatever they are these days. Yeah, no plane leaves there without multiple Power Apps being involved. Power Apps are being used by every industry I can imagine. The people I'm training this week, we're doing a private class. They are the government, right? The guy I talked to yesterday is, doing stuff for the DoD. They're everywhere, and they are running mission critical things for lots of stuff. So no, it is not a toy platform. It is, you can build toys with it, you can build video games with it, but it is a robust, high uptime, stable platform.
So one last question for me. If you had your choice between Dataverse, SharePoint, and Azure, which would you probably select?
Dataverse. So SharePoint is, most people get their Power Apps licensing from Office 365. If you're getting it from Office 365, SharePoint is the free data source. SharePoint is the best free data source. If you want to build bigger, better, more robust things, then you move to a premium data source, which then you're saying you're basically choosing at that point between Dataverse and Azure SQL. Dataverse is the absolute best data platform for Power Apps. It's the fastest, it has the most features, and more importantly than all that, it's the one that Microsoft wants to be number one. So Microsoft spends all their money and effort making it even better. So if you have a blank slate, Dataverse is the best one, right? It has its quirks, right? Don't get me wrong, it's not perfect, and I hated Dataverse for many years, but I can't deny that it's the one that Microsoft wants to win, so it's going to win.
I have sort of a speculative question for you. If I were Microsoft, the first three connectors I would add to the package would be Excel, Access, and SQL. And it seems like this Access connector is just now being published.
Well, it's not even an Access connector. It's a Dataverse connector for Access.
Right. Is there any history behind that? Have you ever seen anything about Access prior to this?
No, so Excel was their first. So you're absolutely right. Excel was their first one. SQL has been around forever. It used to be my favorite. I mean, it still has a special place in my heart, but whatever. But the problem is that Access has never had, like, where would you put an Access database today if you wanted to, have a bunch of people transactionally working on the same database at once, right? Like, Access doesn't have that available.
Yeah, that's the problem that I see. I'm stepping on you a little bit. I apologize for that. We have to keep in mind that Access has an interface component and a data component. And when you talk about Access, you can talk about the forms and reports, which the interface, but it will work with virtually any, up until now, including Dataverse, with any data source. So when you see we have to make Access work with Power Apps, that's really not a very useful way to think about it in my mind, because the database component in Access, the ACE engine itself, like Shane just said, isn't going to sit in a location where Power Apps could get to it. So you can still keep your interface, all the forms and reports and the VBA and all the things that make it work. But you unplug one data source and stick another one in there, and you're back online. And I think that's the way to look at it, is that by moving your data from ACE into Dataverse or even SharePoint lists, you have now opened that data up to other interfaces, including Power Apps.
I
say that badly.
Based on a general model of having, large access structures, in an organization with, 100 users or so, and maybe 5 users that need to be remote from time to time, and being able to connect them to that backend database with a remote front end that they can run around with in their hand would simplify things. And Access it's almost impossible to support that in native Access. So that's the application I was picturing in my mind, where a live connection would work, where the primary application was not the Power App, it was just an occasional connector.
Yeah, I can't say no. I'm good with that. That seems like a reasonable thought.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. Well,
all right. So I need to get control back so I can save my recording, if you don't mind.
No. There you go. You are the host.